Hey, MCARBO brother, I'm Chris Nelson, President of MCARBO. Really excited to introduce new CZ75 floating trigger pin for your CZ75. It'll work for all steel frame CZ75 models to include the clones. It will not work for the Omegas or the tactical sports, unfortunately, but it'll work for everything else. Look at the website, it'll tell you each individual model it'll work for just to get that extra reassurance, but it is a fantastic improvement over that factory hollow pin. That thing is gonna get mangled over time, so it's got a limited life on how many times you can take it out or put it back in. This pin got an unlimited life. So it's S7 tool steel, and then it's heat treated to a Rockwell 50, which is similar to that of an axe head. A little overkill. We don't need that much, but consider it bulletproof. It's no longer a weak point in your CZ75, it's a strong point. And a lot of these small components, you'll see, the major manufacturers kind of save a little money. They try to save a little money here and there, so it makes sense. Over time, over millions and millions of guns, it makes sense, adds up. Pennies add up to a lot of dollars in that regard. But in this case, we want to have something that's going to last a lifetime, especially if we're doing any kind of disassembly work. If we're trying to put the new spring kit in there to reduce a trigger pull, you got to take it apart. Or if you're going to do a really deep cleaning, you shoot it a lot, you got to take it apart. So it's nice to have a pin that could literally drive out the factory pin, which is what we're going to do in this video. Nice thing, it's a floating pin. It's captured by the trigger return spring. So you can tap this pin out, left to right, right to left. If you go on any of the CZ forums, anything like that, everybody's telling you like you got to do a certain way to tap this pin out, which is true because the factory pin is flared on one end and not on the other. So it's intended to be tapped out one particular direction and then reinstalled another direction. So to make it a little simpler on yourself with this pin, you don't have to worry about that. So let's get on our tabletop, show you how we did it. Parts needed for this build, the CZ75 floating trigger pin by MCARBO. It's floating in that it is captured. This pin is captured by the trigger return spring, not the frame. So the nice thing about this is that you can push this pin through either side, won't matter. With the CZ75, you have to push the pin out from right to left. This is universal, designed to be installed and removed an unlimited amount of times due to, well, the hardness. It's a S7 tool steel at a Rockwell 50. I mean, overkill. You don't need all that, but we wanted to make something premium and ensure that it was designed for a lifetime and would last a lifetime. And you could repeatedly remove it, install it, remove it, install it. A lot of us are working on our CZ75s, and with the CZ75 trigger spring kit we've offered now, guys are taking them apart and putting those springs in, and they're doing other things to customize them, even clean them, get a good detailed cleaning. So it's a nice S7 tool steel Rockwell 50, really strong pin, equivalent, so Rockwell 50 would be equivalent to the steel head of an axe or a hatchet, to give you some kind of idea on what that Rockwell 50 hardness is. And it also comes with this assembly tool here, so it's designed to assist with keeping that trigger return spring captured in the trigger. But I'm going to show you a nice little simpler way to install this pin. It should be really quick, really straightforward, and easy. That's what I like about it. Tools needed for this build: 1/16 inch punch, 3/32 inch punch, 1/8 inch punch, hammer, bench block, micro tip, flathead screwdriver, and as always guys, make sure we're in iPro. Let's go ahead and take this opportunity together, check our firearms, make sure they're clear. So we'll check the chamber, check the bolt face, check the magazine well. This firearm's clear. All right, so we'll get started with the quick disassembly. All we have to do is line up that little notch on the slide with that notch in the frame, and then we're gonna push out this takedown lever, which is also your slide stop right here. Real simple and easy. Probably not even gonna need half the tools I mentioned in the beginning of the video. All right, you will need a bench block or something to push down on. All right, you wanna pull back on the slide, line up those two little lines. All right, hold it tight in place, and then just push down on that bench block. We're gonna be pushing on that little nub right there, the takedown lever. All right, so our little lines lined up, push down. And I find it's just easy to use the micro tip. Try not to scratch anything, just pop it right out. There's the takedown lever. Slide stop. Now we'll go ahead and pull the slide right off the frame. All right, we can take a good look at those. Nice, we can put that slide just to the side. Won't need it right yet, or at all for that matter. We're gonna be focusing right here on this trigger return spring and this trigger hinge pin. All right, so you can see the factory one in there is just banged up. This is our first CZ75, this CZ75B compact, and we have taken it apart so many times. That pin is just hanging on for dear life in there. You can just see that it's seen better days. It is a hollow pin, so they got to cut costs somewhere in mass production, and unfortunately it's usually the kind of the cheaper items like a pin or whatever, but that pin broke or deformed in any sort of way that led to some kind of serious malfunction, that'd be a huge problem. So it's nice to shore up any loose ends that we might have, any weak points. So we're only as strong as that weakest link there, and that is definitely one of them. So you can see this pin's on its last leg. So we're gonna go ahead and push it out. All right, with CZ, You know, this pin is straight all the way through, it's hollow, but it's got one end that is intentionally flared so that it's captured by the frame. So we're replacing it with this floating pin that'll be captured by the trigger return spring. All right, so we're gonna push it from right to left. Now you could take your 3/32" punch, tap that out, and then use the installation tool to keep the trigger return spring captured and all that. But I found a simpler way that I like, and I'll show you. So we'll leave that in for now. Let's go ahead and open up our kit from MCARBO, S7 tool steel floating trigger pin. All right, so it comes with the pin. It comes with a little assembly tool there. That's the same one that comes in the spring kit. In this application, I don't think it's that necessary. I'm going to show you why. So we'll put that little guy aside. Now we're going to take a good close look at this CNC machined S7 tool steel, then hardened to 50 Rockwell. Then it's finished off with a black oxide coating. Really nice premium look. You know, solid pin, so designed to be removed, installed, removed, installed, removed, installed, as many times as you like. Probably not going to need to do it that often, but it's nice to know that it's not going to eventually break or deform in any sort of serious way from taking it out. So it's not hollow like the factory pin, and it's going to be captured by that trigger return spring, hence it's a floating pin. So it's going to stay inside the frame with that tension off of the trigger return spring, which is perfectly fine. You'll feel the resistance, and we'll even test it here in a second. But it gives you a good look here. Now this pin, all right, it'll work for all CZ75 models, steel frames, to include the steel frame clones. Now if you go to the website, it'll say each individual model that it'll work for. It's a long list. The only ones it won't work for are Omega Series or Tactical Sport Series. So those two series, Tactical Sport or Omega Series, it won't work. But everything else, it's going to work. Go ahead and confirm it though. On the website, it'll show you a whole laundry list of CZs, and there's a ton of them, as you guys know. So we're pushing from right to left on the factory setup, unless you've taken your pin out and you put it back in on the wrong side. If it's straight from factory and you haven't messed with it, then you're pushing from right to left. The easiest way to tell though is, you know, which side has the flared end. So that doesn't look very flared. Flip it over, that looks pretty flared. All right, so what we're going to do is get our pin started. Okay, take your 3/32" punch, just give it a little tap. The idea is to make enough room for us to get the pin inserted, because what we're going to do is basically use this pin to tap out the factory pin. And this is a stronger pin, so you don't have to worry about it getting damaged. You know, it's much stronger than that factory pin, so if anything, your factory pin is going to get a little mangled. All right, so we got it started. You just want to keep it nice and straight and just continue tapping. You don't have to worry about it bending or anything like that. Kind of a nice clean transition, just like that. So there's the factory pin. Now we're not completely seated yet, so let's get it seated. So you can take your 1/8" punch and just push it the rest of the way through, and you should kind of feel a little snap there. So we'll give it a tap or two. There you go. All right, so it's snapped right in place, and it's nice and flush on both sides. It even looks better. All right, so it's captured in there. You can see how it's captured. That spring's gonna still have its freedom of movement, but it's still gonna capture that floating pin. So you might be able to push it just a hair, but it's gonna take much more force to push it all the way through. Same on this side. Not quite as much as it did on the factory pin, but you know, it's much easier to disassemble. It's still captured and retained, but it's not something you're gonna have to hammer away to get out like we did initially. All right, good. Good little snap located in place. It's held into there under some good tension. And that even looks better. I mean, it's solid pin, S7 tool steel, Rockwell 50. It's bulletproof. I mean, this is overkill, but it's nice to know that it's a strong point now, not a weak point in this firearm. And these are really well made, so simple little stuff like that, you know, little hardware items can definitely always be a cheap, weak point in most firearms. So there we go. We got a nice, solid, floating, captured trigger pin. Really love the look of it too. It doesn't even look cheap. You know, this hollow pin looked extremely cheap and really mangled and worn pretty bad. So over time, they definitely can look like they've been through hell and back. So it's nice we've got a lifetime replacement here. Don't have to worry about it. Set it and forget it. So we've got all that back together. We're ready to go ahead and put the slide back on. Just as simple as the way it came off. Just gonna slide it on, you know, and make sure your recoil spring and guide rod are in place. And we've got a stainless steel guide rod option coming soon, so stay tuned for that. All right, we'll slide it right on, and we're gonna pull back, line up those two little notches, grab our takedown lever slide stop. It's gonna go in like this orientation right here. All right, drop it right in, Pop it right in place. Okay, we're good to go. Let's do a quick little function check. Slide stop works. All right, good. Place it on safe, pull the trigger, nothing, good. All right, pull the trigger, nice. Keep it back, listen for the reset, beautiful. There you go, man. Excellent. So we are rock solid now. We've got a bulletproof S7 tool steel trigger pin replacement. It's floating so that it's captured by that trigger return spring. You can push it out either way, left to right, right to left, it doesn't matter. Really love what we were able to achieve here. Rockwell 50 hardness, similar to that of an axe head. Well more than we would ever need, but it is certainly going to be a strong point rather than a weak point, which is always nice reassurance. Well, there you have it, guys. CZ75 floating trigger pin replacement for the hollow pin comes from the factory. You don't have to worry about tapping in any direction with this floating pin as it's captured with the trigger return spring inside. You can tap it out either direction, doesn't matter. Install it either direction, doesn't matter. It is S7 tool steel, heat treated to Rockwell 50, similar to that of an axe head. Bulletproof. You don't have to worry about this thing being a weak point or causing any sort of catastrophic malfunction in the future. We're covered. So that's a nice thing, is we can take this apart as many times as we want without worrying about this pin going down on us. And nothing's worse having your gun completely apart and now you're waiting on a little pin to come in so you can put it back together and shoot it. So it's nice, solid replacement. A lot of us are installing the lighter trigger kit to get a nice, clean, smooth trigger pull. This is a great complementary add-on to ensure you're not going to have to worry about this pin any longer. The factory pin is hollow. You got all these directions, left, right, right, left. It's flared on one end. This is a great replacement. S7 tool steel Rockwell 50. We even tapped out the factory pin with it. I love it. I love having something that I can rest assured I'm not gonna have to worry about. It's like, check that off the list. You know, that one's done. Not gonna have any problems there. So there you go, guys. Really hope you enjoy this. Thank you, MCARBO Brotherhood, for your ideas and your support. As always, happy shooting.